My name is Maya. I'm 26 years old, and my grandmother, Eleanor, raised me from the time I was 8 years old. My parents divorced when I was young, and neither of them wanted me. My mom moved to another state with her new boyfriend. My dad was too busy with his career, so Grandma stepped in. She took me into her big, beautiful house in a neighborhood that had become one of the most expensive areas in the city. She'd bought it in the 1970s for $30,000. Now it was worth over $2 million. She didn't care about the money. She cared about me. She made me breakfast every morning, helped me with homework, came to every school event. We had movie nights, Sunday dinners, garden days. She wasn't just my grandmother. She was my mom, my best friend, my everything. And for 18 years, we built a life together, just the two of us. Meanwhile, the rest of the family, my Uncle David, my Aunt Karen, my cousins, barely visited. Maybe Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving, and even then, they'd complain the whole time about how far the drive was, about how old the house was, about how Grandma should sell and move somewhere smaller. What they really meant was sell so we can get the money. 2 years ago, Grandma got sick, cancer, aggressive, and fast. I moved back home, quit my job in another city, and became her full-time caregiver. I bathed her, helped her to the bathroom, cooked her meals, sat with her through chemo. I watched her suffer, and I held her hand through every single moment. And my family, where were they? Uncle David called once a month, Aunt Karen sent a card. Cousins didn't even text, but they all suddenly showed up the week before she died, circling like vultures, asking about her will, asking if she needed help with finances, asking if she'd signed anything recently. Grandma saw right through them. One night, she squeezed my hand and said, "Maya, they're going to try to take everything from you when I'm gone, but I've made sure they can't. You're the only one who loved me for me, not for what I have." I didn't understand what she meant until the day after she died, when the lawyer called and said, "I need to read the will. There are some people who aren't going to be happy." The will reading happened 3 days before the funeral. Grandma had requested it that way. She wanted everyone to know where they stood before they buried her. The lawyer, Mr. Peterson, sat at the head of the table in his office, me on one side, my uncle, aunt, and 2 cousins on the other. He opened the envelope and read, "To my niece Maya, Eleanor Chen, I leave my house, located at 427 Maple Street, valued at approximately $2 million, all contents therein, all personal belongings, and my savings account containing $50,000. She is the sole inheritor of my estate. To my son, David, and daughter, Karen, leave $10,000 each to be split between them, and to my grandchildren, excluding Maya, I leave $5,000 each. This is not done out of spite, but out of love. Maya earned this through years of care, love, and presence. The rest of you earned exactly what you're getting." The room exploded. Uncle David stood up, slamming his hands on the table. "This is insane. Mom wasn't in her right mind. She had cancer. She was on medication. This will is invalid." Aunt Karen was crying. "You manipulated her, Maya. You isolated her from us. You brainwashed her into giving you everything." My cousin Tyler said, "We're contesting this. There's no way this holds up." Mr. Peterson waited for them to finish, then said calmly, "Eleanor anticipated this. She had a psychological evaluation done 1 month before her death by a licensed psychiatrist. She was deemed fully competent. She also recorded a video statement, which she requested I show you. If anyone contested the will, shall I play it?" He pressed play on his laptop, and there was Grandma sitting in her bedroom, looking directly at the camera. "If you're watching this," she said, "it means someone is fighting over my money, probably David or Karen, maybe both. Let me be very clear. I am of sound mind. I know exactly what I'm doing. Maya is getting everything because she earned it. She gave up her life to take care of me. She loved me when I was sick and dying and ugly. The rest of you loved me when it was convenient. David, you called once a month. Karen, you sent cards. You didn't visit. You didn't help. You didn't show up. And now you want my house. You want my money. You can't have it. Maya gets it all. And if you try to take it from her, I hope this video haunts you." She looked directly at the camera. "I love you, Maya. Don't let them bully you." The video ended. The room was silent. Then Uncle David said, "We'll see what a judge says," and he stormed out. Aunt Karen followed. My cousins glared at me and left. I sat there with Mr. Peterson and said, "Are they going to win?" He shook his head. "Not with this evidence, but they'll try to make it difficult Be prepared, Maya, your grandmother left you everything, including the fight that comes with it. I nodded and said I'm ready, but I wasn't ready for what they'd do at her funeral. The funeral was 4 days. Later, I planned everything: the flowers, the music, the service I wrote, the eulogy, and I practiced it 100 times because I wanted it to be perfect. I wanted to honor her the way she deserved. My family showed up dressed in black, playing the grieving relatives, hugging people they didn't know, crying fake tears. I watched them and felt sick, but I focused on Grandma and saying goodbye. The service started. I sat in the front row, Jenna next to me, and halfway through it was my turn to speak. I walked to the podium, looked out at everyone, and started. My grandmother Eleanor was the strongest person I've ever known, I said, my voice shaking. She raised me when no one else would. She taught me how to bake bread, how to plant tomatoes, how to stand up for myself. She told me that family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up. And Grandma, you showed up. Every single day of my life I kept going, talking about memories, about love, about loss, and my phone started buzzing. I ignored it, but then Jenna's phone buzzed, and she looked at it. Her face went white. She tried to get my attention subtly, but I kept reading. Then she mouthed it clearly. Your uncle is at the house right now. I stopped mid-sentence. What? She showed me her phone. Her boyfriend had texted her. I drove past Eleanor's house. There's a locksmith van and a moving truck. David is there with movers. They're taking stuff out. I looked at the audience, at my uncle's wife sitting there, at my aunt next to her, at my cousins in the back, and none of them were there. Uncle David, Aunt Karen, cousins Tyler and Emma, all missing. They weren't at Grandma's funeral. They were at her house stealing it. I looked down at my grandmother's casket and I thought about her video. Don't let them bully you. I folded my eulogy, looked at Jenna, and said, I have to go. She said, go, I'll handle this. I walked out of the church in the middle of the service. People whispered. I didn't care. I got in my car and drove 80 miles an hour across town to Maple Street, and when I turned onto the block, I saw it, a budget moving truck parked in the driveway, a locksmith van behind it, my uncle standing on the porch, directing 2 movers, carrying out my grandmother's antique dresser. I parked on the street, pulled out my phone, opened the video app, and started recording. Then I walked up the driveway. Uncle David, I said loudly. He turned around, his face going red. Maya, what are you doing here? You should be at the funeral. I said, what am I doing here? I'm stopping you from stealing my house. He laughed. This isn't your house, Maya. This is the family house, and we're clearing it out before you try to take everything that doesn't belong to you. The locksmith was drilling out the old lock on the front door. I walked up to him. Excuse me, did my uncle hire you? The locksmith looked uncomfortable. Yeah, he said. He's changing the locks. Do you have documentation that he owns this property? I asked. The locksmith hesitated and looked at my uncle. Uncle David said, she's just a tenant. We're the owners. I pulled out my phone. I have the will right here. This house was left to me by Eleanor Chen, my grandmother. I am the sole owner. He doesn't have any legal right to change locks or remove property. The locksmith stopped drilling. This is between you two. I'm not getting involved. He packed up his tools, got in his van, and left. Uncle David's face went purple. You can't do this, Maya. We're family. This house should be split between all of us. I held up my phone, still recording. Really, Uncle David, where were you the last 2 years when Grandma was dying? Where were you when she needed help with groceries? When she couldn't walk? When she was throwing up from chemo? You called once a month. You think that earns you $2 million. Step toward me. Your grandmother wasn't thinking clearly when she made that will. You manipulated her. I said she made a video specifically for people like you. Want me to play it? He stopped. The movers had put the dresser down and were watching. I turned to them. Did he hire you? They nodded. Yeah, we're just doing a job. I said, this is stolen property. I'm the legal owner of this house and everything in it. If you remove anything, I will file a police report for theft. They looked at each other, then at my uncle. One of them said, man, we don't get paid enough for this. They walked back to the truck, got in, and drove away. Uncle David was shaking. You're going to regret this, Maya. I'm contesting the will. I'm taking you to court. You're not going to get away with this. I said, go ahead. Grandma left a psychological evaluation, a video statement, and a lawyer who's ready to bury you in paperwork. And Uncle David, while you were here trying to steal from me, you missed her funeral. You missed saying goodbye to your own mother because you were too busy trying to rob her. Granddaughter, how does that feel? He didn't answer. Aunt Karen's car pulled up. She got out, saw me, saw the movers gone, and said, "What happened, Uncle David?" Said she stopped us. Karen, we need to call our lawyer. Now I looked at Aunt Karen. Where were you? You weren't at the funeral either. She didn't respond, just got back in her car. My uncle followed and they drove off. I stood there, alone in the driveway, and I called the police. The officer who came took my statement, looked at the video I'd recorded, and said, "This is pretty clear cut. You own the house. They tried to remove property without permission. That's attempted theft. Do you want to press charges?" I hesitated. "Their family," he said, "that doesn't give them the right to steal." Nodded, "Yes, I want to press charges." He wrote up the report and said, "You should get the locks changed tonight, just in case they come back." I called a locksmith, paid extra for same day service, and by that night I had new keys to my house that no one could take from me. I walked through the rooms, touching Grandma's things, the furniture, the photos, the quilts she'd made, and I cried, not because I was sad, but because I was so tired of fighting, tired of defending myself, tired of being treated like I didn't deserve what she'd given me. But I wasn't going to stop, because Grandma didn't raise me to give up. She raised me to fight, and that's exactly what I did. 2 days later, Uncle David and Aunt Karen filed a motion to contest the will they claimed Grandma was mentally incompetent, that I'd manipulated her, that the will was invalid. Mr. Peterson, my lawyer, wasn't worried at all. He said, "Maya, we have everything we need: the psych evaluation, the video, her medical records showing she was lucid, visitor logs from her assisted living showing you visited 4 times a week, and they didn't, bank statements showing you paid for her care. They have nothing." The court date was set for 6 weeks later, and in that time my family launched a campaign against me. They posted on social media about how I'd stolen their inheritance they called extended family, and told them I was a manipulative liar. They sent me texts and emails every day, some threatening, some begging, some trying to guilt me. "Your grandmother would be ashamed of you." One text said she'd want us to share. Another said, "You're tearing this family apart." I didn't respond to any of them. I just saved every single message because I knew they'd be useful. Later, Jenna asked me once, "Do you ever regret it taking the house?" I thought about it, then said, "No, Grandma gave it to me because I loved her, because I was there. They weren't. I'm not going to apologize for that, and I'm not going to let them rewrite history." The day before the court hearing, Mr. Peterson called. "Maya, I need to tell you something. Your uncle's lawyer reached out. They want to settle." "What are they offering?" I asked. $50,000. "And you dropped the theft charges?" He said, "They're scared." I laughed. "They should be. What do you think I should do?" He said, "It's your choice, but if we go to court tomorrow, we're going to win and they'll get nothing." I thought about Grandma, about the video, about her saying, "Don't let them bully you." "No settlement?" I said, "Let's go to court." The courtroom was small, just a judge, a court reporter, my lawyer, their lawyer, and my family sitting on one side of the room, me on the other. The judge called the case, and Uncle David's lawyer stood up. "Your Honor, we're here today because my clients believe their mother, Eleanor Chen, was not of sound mind when she made her will. She was under the influence of prescription medication, and her granddaughter Maya, who was her primary caregiver, exercised undue influence over her. The will should be declared invalid, and the estate should be distributed equally among all heirs." Mr. Peterson stood up. "Your Honor, we have extensive evidence proving Mrs. Chen was fully competent. We have a psychological evaluation completed 1 month before her death by Dr. Richard Lawson, a licensed psychiatrist, who concluded she was of sound mind and understood the consequences of her decisions. We also have medical records showing that while she was on pain medication, it did not affect her cognitive abilities. Additionally, we have a video statement from Mrs. Chen explaining her decision. The judge said, "I'd like to see the video." Mr. Peterson played it. Grandma's face filled the screen, and she said, "If you're watching this, someone is fighting over my money, probably David or Karen." The judge watched the whole thing. When it ended, he said, "Does the contesting party have any evidence of incompetence?" Uncle David's lawyer hesitated. "We have testimony from family members who believe she was confused. We have no medical evidence." "Your Honor," the judge looked at my uncle and aunt and said, "Let me understand this. Your contesting your mother's will based on your belief that she wasn't competent despite a professional evaluation stating otherwise. Uncle David said she wasn't herself in those final months. She didn't recognize people. She was confused. The judge said, "Do you have any medical records to support that?" Uncle David went quiet. Mr. Peterson stood up. "Your Honor, I'd like to submit visitor logs from Mrs. Chan's assisted living facility." He handed over documents. These logs show that Maya visited her grandmother an average of 4 times per week for the 2 years preceding her death. David and Karen visited a combined total of 6 times in 2 years. The judge looked at the logs. "Then, at my uncle and aunt, you visited your dying mother 6 times in 2 years." Uncle David stammered. "It was hard to get time off work. It's a long drive. She had care. We thought she was fine," the judge said. "And yet you're here fighting for her estate." Mr. Peterson continued, "Your Honor, we'd also like to submit financial records showing that Maya paid for her grandmother's care out of her own pocket. She covered medical bills, groceries, home modifications, totaling over $40,000. David and Karen contributed nothing." He handed over more documents. The judge reviewed them, then said, "Miss Chen, did you expect to be repaid for these expenses?" I stood up. "No, Your Honor, I did it because I loved her." The judge nodded and looked at my uncle and aunt. "Mr. Chen, Ms. Davis, your mother made her wishes very clear. She left her estate to the person who cared for her, who sacrificed for her, who loved her without expecting anything in return. That person was Maya. The fact that you left your mother's funeral to attempt to break into her house and remove property tells me everything I need to know about your motivations. This will is valid. This case is dismissed." He banged the gavel and it was over. Uncle David stood up. "Your Honor, this isn't fair." The judge said, "What isn't fair, Mr. Chen, is that your mother died and, instead of grieving you, tried to steal from the person she loved most." "Sit down. This court is adjourned." My uncle and aunt walked out. Without looking at me, their lawyer shook Mr. Peterson's hand and said, "Off the record, your client deserved to win." Stood there shaking. Mr. Peterson turned to me and said, "Congratulations, Maya. The house is yours." I started crying right there in the courtroom, not sad tears, relief tears. Grandma had protected me even after she was gone. She'd made sure I'd win, and I had. Later that day, I got a call from the police. The officer I'd filed the theft report with said, "Maya, I wanted to let you know we've completed the investigation. We have video evidence, witness statements, and your uncle's own admission that he attempted to remove property without permission. The DA is moving forward with charges if convicted. He's looking at up to a year in jail and a fine. Do you want to add a victim impact statement?" I thought about it, thought about my uncle, sitting in a courtroom again, thought about him finally facing consequences. "Yes," I said, "I do. I'll write it." I spent that night writing everything. How he ignored Grandma for years. How he showed up only when he wanted something. How he tried to steal from me while I was burying her. How he spread lies about me to the family I didn't hold back. And when I submitted it, I felt lighter. The sentencing hearing happened. 2 months later, Uncle David pled guilty to attempted theft to avoid trial. He stood in front of the judge and said, "I made a mistake. I acted out of grief. I wasn't thinking clearly." The judge read my statement out loud in court. Read about the years of neglect, the lies, the cruelty. Then he said, "Mr. Chen, grief doesn't excuse theft, and frankly, your actions show a pattern of disrespect toward your mother and your niece. I'm sentencing you to 6 months in jail, suspended, meaning if you stay out of trouble, you won't serve time, 500 hours of community service, a $5,000 fine, and a restraining order. You are not to contact Maya Chen or go within 500 feet of her property." My uncle's face went red, but he nodded. Aunt Karen wasn't charged. She claimed she didn't know what Uncle David was planning, but our relationship was over. My cousins sent me one last message calling me a selfish monster. I blocked them all, and I never looked back because the people who loved me stayed. Jenna, my friends, my coworkers, they all supported me, and Grandma, she was with me every day in every room of that house. I still live there 2 years later. I've redecorated, kept some of Grandma's things, donated others, but the house still feels like her, like love, like home. I started a garden like she had. I bake bread on Sundays like we used to. I host dinners for my real family, the people who show up, and sometimes I walk through the house and I say, Thank you, Grandma, out loud, because she gave me more than a house, she gave me freedom, security, proof that I mattered, and on the mantle in the living room, I keep a framed photo of her. Next to it is a copy of the will, and under that, a small plaque that says, "Family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up." She showed up for me her whole life, and when she couldn't anymore, she made sure I was protected, and I'll spend the rest of my life honoring that. So tell me, if your family tried to steal your inheritance while you were literally burying the person who loved you, would you let them get away with it? Or would you do what I did, walk out of the funeral, drive to the house, and fight for what was yours? Because I fought and I won, and every single day I live in this house, I remember that Grandma didn't just leave me $2 million, she left me the lesson that love isn't about what you say, it's about what you do, and I'll never forget it.